everybody. I'm Amy,
And I'm Paul.
and welcome to the Comics Hall. We've got
It's
a
a Groundhog Day edition.
Groundhog Day edition. If you're watching on our Instagram, we had a little bit of technical difficulty, but we are here to cover all of the releases from today, Wednesday, February 17th, plus some exciting news
Mhm.
and the debut of a new segment on the Comics Hall. So if you've been watching for a while, we've got that for you, so you can check that out. We do have our lovely moderator, Jasmine, in the chat, so you can talk with her, ask her questions, concerns, compliments, pass any questions to us through her.
Mhm.
She's great people. She knows her comic stuff. So check that out. Um, we are currently streaming on multiple platforms, or we should be currently, so you guys can join us on your favored social media platform. So there is some big comic news this week. We will post up the news on
Mhm.
our blog, so you can check that out. Very cool stuff from DC
Yep.
Comics and Marvel about the Fantastic Four and some cinematic DC properties coming to film. But we did want to cover before we move on to the comics goodness for this week. We've got a really fun event coming up for this Friday on the 19th through Sideshow. It is Court of the Dead Day, and this is the first
Yes.
Underworld celebration of its kind from Sideshow, which will feature giveaways, Sideshow rewards, game shows, everybody's favorite new win, lose, or die, and cobbled cosplay. We've got live streams and deals to help you build your crypt of Court of the Dead curios. Now, currently, you can register for the event for free, and Jasmine will drop the link to the event
Mhm.
registration. That nets you $5 in Sideshow rewards, so you want to make sure you do have a Sideshow account. Plus, you gain automatic entry into the grand prize pack for the event, which is an awesome gaming package from the kind of complete catalog of Court of the Dead's gaming properties,
Right.
which is really cool. And the centerpiece of the day is going to be a big live stream called Court of the Dead, Alive from the Underworld, which will also feature exclusive giveaways and talks with Tom Gilland, the mind behind the madness of the Underworld himself. Paul, what any other things
Yeah.
about Court of the Dead Day you want to call out?
Yeah, it's we are going to have content up on social all day. So if you need to familiarize yourself with what Court of the Dead is, as early as like 2 o'clock in the morning, we are going to hit the ground running with lore to sort of prep you for the Alive from the Underworld. So you can really, go to the Underworld feeling good and ready to join a faction. But you know, again, doubling up on all of the things that Amy had said, reward codes, everything. You can actually go, if you were listening on the podcast format, hello from the past, and also go to side.show/COTD, like Court of the Dead, COTD day. So that's side.show/COTD day. You can register, you can see the landing page that we have there, and everything as far as giveaways and such will be there as well. And that's really going to be your hub for Court of the Dead Day. So
Yeah.
very excited for that.
So if you are listening live, that is in 2 days. That'll be Friday the 19th. But if you're listening on the podcast, which goes live on the Thursday following every Wednesday, you do have some time to still prep. And if you're listening in the far-flung future, be sure to check all of the event recap because it's sure to be a spooky good time. And there will be free stories and stuff. So we're going to talk today about free Court of the Dead content that you can read
Yes.
online. So there's going to be some of that coming up for Court of the Dead Day. But we'll get to that in a little bit.
Mhm.
First of all, we had a panel of the week showdown in anticipation of Court of the Dead Day to kind of introduce you to the fact that there are, in fact, web comics and comics in general available for Court of the Dead. So, our panel of the week showdown was best panel that is available as a free web comic from courtofthedead.com.
Yes.
Now, Paul, do you want to explain your pick?
I do. So mine is from Death's First Harvest, story and characters by Tom Gilland, script by Landry Q. Walker, art by Ivan Koritarev,
Karita Rev.
Koritarev, I'm sorry, and letters by Pat Brossow. So we see Death sort of shepherding a soul from, into the underworld. I just loved this panel so much. You can sort of get everything that you need to know about Death in just this panel. I also love the colors and the contrast of Death's sort of, you know, murky green skin versus like the bright colors of that soul. It's incredible. I love this panel so much, and I actually went through the entire catalog looking for a panel, and this is what ended up being my choice here.
It's an excellent choice. And yes, color is actually really important in Court of the Dead, and the
Mhm.
blue is the energy of the soul. So that was like a really great thing to notice. I picked a panel out of Court of the Dead Call of the Valkyrie, which is one of the
Oof.
several comics featuring everybody's favorite, Kier. This is story and characters by Tom Gilliland with a script by Jason Bischoff, art by Andrew Huerta, and letters by Pat Brosseau as well. And I just really loved um, the really quick dialogue in this panel where a broken soul on the battlefield is saying Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and Kira is saying, I am no angel. Just a really cool look at the character of Kier, who is a fan favorite for a lot of good reasons.
Mhm.
Um, and the art style itself also was really, really um, very unique and intense lines, a lot less elegant than you would expect a lot of the Court
Mhm.
of the Dead pieces to be. But this is it's got the energy and kind of uh again, very bright contrast of what you would expect for Court of the Dead. So I just thought this was a great panel to show off one of the best characters in the Court of the Dead.
Also, this panel has like really great perspective of like you're the soul and she is talking to you,
Hmm.
and it's just a great panel. I love the energy and like that sword alone. Oh man, it's great.
Yep.
But there can only be one winner, and the winner this week of Panel of the Week, which is redundant, but I'm sorry, is drum roll. Amy Chase.
Call of the Valkyrie.
Oh, I thought the panel was called Amy Chase beats Paul by like 80 votes. Yeah, this one wasn't even close. Sometimes or more recently in our panels of the week, you guys vote on our Instagram right here at the Comics Hall, also our Twitter. You can find us there, or our Facebook. But we also post in the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group. But normally it's pretty close. It was not
And it's
close this
usually
week.
pretty close in your favor.
I mean, I have a tendency to sometimes just kind of like squeak out a win sometimes. I think what are we at now, Amy? I think we're tied up again this
Almost,
year
yeah. 2 and 2,
because
3 and 3,
I
something like
somehow
that.
missed the Comics Hall meeting where we're redoing all of our like it's a fresh slate. It's fine.
Yeah.
I should just read my notes, but yeah, so it's close, but this one was not close. But Amy rightfully deserved the win. That was an awesome panel.
Thank you very much. And if you guys are wondering where you can see those panels for yourselves, we will have some information about that for you in our new segment coming up. But before we get to that, we have our usual bread and butter of the show. We've got the weekly haul. Very interesting week. We're kind of in the middle of February.
Yeah.
A shorter month for the publishers, but there are still some great releases. We do have some new number ones that are excellent to talk about. So, we are going to jump right in with the aim of the book. And again, Paul, if you want to, do you want to refresh anyone who might be
Sure
just
thing.
joining us on what the aim system is?
So, if this is your first time joining us, we don't necessarily like to give books a numerical rating. We just think what is a 2 to us might be a 9 out of 10 for you. So, what we do is we have a system called our AIM system, which is an acronym. The A stands for accessibility. How easy is it for you to find this book, like tangibly pick this book up, and then also how easy is it for you to just jump in? Can you just pick it up and read it and understand what's going on? The I stands for interest. Who do we think would like this book? Also, what is the interest of this book around the comic book world? Is it generating a lot of buzz? But also, like, what properties specifically we think we can sort of tie to this that we think you would like. And lastly, the M, money, or as Amy likes to put it, the monetary investment. How much does this book cost, and what are you getting for what you're paying? So that is our AIM system. That's what we use for all of our reviews that we do.
Yeah, and
So
hopefully
Amy,
it'll help give you all the tools you need to make
mhm,
an informed decision at your local comic book store. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right into our first aim this week. We've got Hollow Heart #1 from Vault Comics. Now, again, if you are just joining us for the first time, Paul and I love Vault Comics, and that
yes,
is clear through the catalog of recent weeks of reviews. They have been pushing the gas and just really going full throttle on some really unique uh, brand new series highlighting creators that you might not have been familiar with before. So Hollow Heart is written by Paul Aller with art and colors by Paul Tucker. So it's a two Paul team. We here at the Comics Hall are just a one Paul team, but
it's a shame.
Two Pauls might be better than one. No,
Almost
could
never.
almost
I
never.
can promise you.
But this is the big release from Vault. There are a couple of other series out from Vault this week, with the second issue coming out for The Picture of Everything Else. But this is their kind of headliner for the week. And the best way that I can describe it is it is a queer sci-fi horror romance. Now, if any of those terms excite you, this is a fabulous read. I didn't really know what to expect going into it, but I absolutely loved it. You can even see from the evocative cover. And if you are watching live right now, my background is actually the Jen Hickman cover, which features the monster in question with a tank full of goldfish in the helmet, which is very important to the story. Accessibility wise, as this was the big release from Vault Comics, I hope your store is carrying Vault by this point. If they're not, you have to have a Stern talking with them. But more than that, there's at least 3 different covers to choose from. So I'm sure that they have ordered a number of the covers. And in terms of the story accessibility, this is a true number one. It presents you with everything that you need to know to understand the basis of the plot. And true number one is a phrase we like to use here that represents you don't need anything before going into this book. You don't even have to have read the solicitation text. You could pick this book up
Mhm.
off the shelf because you go, that's a cool cover. Do I need to know anything else? And you can dive right in. There's a really also, I want to point out, there's a really engaging use of anecdotal narration that kind of tells the action of the story. Just a really fascinating little read. And in terms of interest, I already mentioned it's kind of that really cool mishmash of genres and subjects that don't usually go together. But if I were to compare it to previously published work, I actually can't think of a comic that is kind of a one-for-one comparison. But if you are a sci-fi fan, this reads like I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream,
Mm.
that very famous Harlan Ellison sci-fi story about a supercomputer that perpetually tortures humans and they just can't die. It kind of flips that in a different direction, but it also reads like The Shape of Water, where a
Mm.
custodian in a scientific laboratory is tasked with taking care of a creature that they may or may not slowly kind of have affection for. Um, in this story, the character on the cover is Elle, and Elle was once a human being, but now they are just a series of kind of just a couple of vital organs in a biomechanical exosuit, kind of like the big daddies from BioShock, actually. And Elle is just a few. It's just a few vital organs. They are, and I actually don't know. Um, it just you don't get a lot of history about how they
Mm.
came to be just vital organs in a suit, but you can tell that Elle is
Aren't we all?
very I mean, at the end of the day, aren't we all just vital organs in an
Eh,
exosuit? But in a cybernetic kind of life support chamber, and Elle is extremely unhappy with this existence and routinely tries to escape captivity. But you find out that Elle is not necessarily just trying to escape to go and live life outside of the science factory, outside of this laboratory, science factory. Oh my God. I don't know what happened there.
You've
Science
been
factory.
doing a show with me for too long is what's happening.
It's because I'm an English major, not a science major. Anyways, but due to these repeated escape attempts, Elle is required to undergo maintenance because the exosuit gets damaged, and so that's when we meet Mateo, um, who is in charge of kind of keeping Elle functioning, and they develop an interesting relationship. And it's only the first issue, but it's really cool, and it deals a lot in the theme of isolation. How can you be a person and have meaningful relationships with other people if you are just a couple of organs in an exosuit?
Mm.
But can humans who are considered to be full humans have meaningful relationships with people, or are we all just isolated? And it also touches a lot on the kind of dignity of life and like
Mm.
the circumstances under which you keep someone alive. And so it's a very, very thought provoking little piece. And so it's one of those things where you hear queer sci fi monster love story and you don't think it's going to work necessarily. But I was absolutely stunned by this debut issue, and it just
Yeah.
really, the artwork is beautiful, the cover is beautiful, the narration style is so unique. Um, I just absolutely loved Hollow Heart. And in terms of the M, for monetary value, it's $3.99, and you're getting 32 pages. That's pretty
Mhm.
consistent for Vault releases. And $3.99 is kind of the standard pricing of an issue. absolutely not to be missed this week. I know some people are probably going to overlook this book just because it is so unique, and that cover's really freaky, actually, but I
Mhm.
love it. Really great color choice, but absolutely, if you are a sci-fi fan, if you are a fan of The Shape of Water, if you've read I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and you're just really into that kind of stuff. And there's also some Frankenstein vibes, but I wouldn't go so far as to say it's anything like a Frankenstein story. I just think that Hollow Heart is like the release of the week, personally.
Oh, so you mean to tell me there's not one pitchfork in this whole comic?
No, but there's like a electric gun with like two little prongs on the end, so it's like the closest thing to a pitchfork
Yeah.
that you get. But it's a really beautiful, thought-provoking story, and I am very, very excited for the next issue. I've made sure to subscribe. I believe 3 issues are solicited currently, and I've made sure to subscribe all the way through. A lot of vault releases.
Yeah.
I get excited for the first issue, and then finishing the first issue, I get excited for everything to come. It's fabulous.
This could be an interesting week because I am going to aim a book, not this next one I'm going to do, but very soon, that I think is the best book of the week that is out. But
Okay.
also, it's like that would also require me and Amy to read like everything that is out.
That is true.
So just take our word for it, I guess. But yeah, Hollow Heart sounds great. It looks great. I picked up, I think, the Tim Daniel cover for this. It looks more like the mech. I think it's the cover B. I'm really excited to read this.
Kind of the comic book
Yeah,
cover parody.
yeah. It's funny because it says L Hollow Heart, and I was like, oh, that's fun. I was like, oh, L. Okay, not what I was thinking at all.
Yes, and also I wanna mention in terms of accessibility, it's available on Comixology, so if for some reason your store
Nice.
does not stock Vault, after you finish writing them a strongly worded letter, check it out on Comixology.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll sign the letter. All right. So I'm going to talk about the book that I would really, really, really like you all to read. And it's also the book that I just so happen to be aiming, which is Haha number 2, which is also what my background is. Now I have covered Haha number 1, and I'm sure you're wondering why are you picking up a number 2, and I will explain that very, very shortly. You are seeing here the cover B, the Ben Simmons. I'm sorry, not not Ben. I keep calling him Ben Simmons, but it's Martin Simons. Um, the variant here for cover B. Wow. Okay. I just completely, as soon as I called him Ben, I completely lost my train of thought. But this is a wonderful cover. Also happens to be my background. So this book is written by W. Maxwell Prince, and art by Zoe Thorogood. So sort of jumping right into the aim of this, we have if we get into like how easy is it to find, it's pretty interesting because Haha number 1 was a bit of a mixed bag. Certain shops, like the shop Amy is at, had a ton of them. My shop didn't have too many of them. I just don't think people knew what to think of this. But my shop now had like a billion covers for this because Haha number 1 did really, really it did pretty well as far as on the retailer side of things. So I do think that your shop should have it if you go and get your books today or tomorrow, but I really wouldn't wait too much longer. This is a pretty hot book right now, but it is available on Comixology right now. Now, as far as accessibility goes, it's not your normal number 2. This is an anthology series, so you can actually just pick up issue 2 and be totally fine. There is nothing really that connects it to issue 1 that is going to impact the story. There is a small tether between issue 1 and 2, like W. Maxwell Prince likes to do. He likes to sneak something in there to let you know this is all in world, but it's not impactful enough for it to really deter you from reading the story. So you can pick up issue 2, no problem, if it's interesting to you. Moving right on to the interest of this. Again, if you like Ice Cream Man or any of the other stuff that W. Maxwell Prince has done, you're gonna love this because it's the same. The best way I can explain it is like the same cadence. It hits the same beats and it hits the same niche feelings that like a comic book can evoke from you. It's slow in the right ways. Like if any of you out there read that Texas Blood that I had recommended a couple times, very similar where it takes its time to tell the story. It's absolutely wonderful. Now it's again, as I mentioned with issue 1, it is very grounded and it is very gritty. And this isn't a book that you read and think, you know what I'd like to do today is I'd like to make my brain feel good. Um, because it's not going to do that. It is a real world look at the things that a mother will do to ensure the survival of her child on the road. And you can kind of fill in the blanks with with your imagination, think of all of the things that that might entail, but it's done in a very, very respectful way. And also Zoe Thorogood does an incredible job of, you know, drawing the expressions on the both lead characters' faces. You have a mother and a daughter who are on the road because the mother has had what her husband thinks is a psychotic break, but it you really don't there's not enough information for you to say like, well, maybe she is, maybe she isn't. But by the end of the book, you definitely will start forming some opinions because I did personally. So, um, but Zoe Thorogood does an incredible job of showing all of the expressions and all of the unsaid feelings and emotions that the mother says to her daughter in this, and does a great job of conveying like sadness and resentment in ways that I just kind of haven't seen in a while. It's incredible, and it's very, again, the best way I can explain it, it's very grounded, and it's something that you can imagine might actually happen in with just replacing, you know, the clown aspect for some other form of work. And it's it's incredible. It tackles some very weighty subjects that W. Maxwell Prince likes to tackle in the comic book medium, like familial loyalty, mental health, and just sort of the things that someone is willing to do for the ones that they love. And it's just incredible. This is definitely a series that should be on your pool. And I didn't even think this was the best book of the week, but I'm starting to shift now, but I also haven't read Hollow Heart, so I can't I can't say that yet. But also Chris O'Halloran and Zoe Thorogood do an excellent job of capturing like quiet moments and sad moments that are all over this book. Again, it's a sad book, but it's very well done. And Chris O'Halloran is actually going to be on the entire series. So that's one thing that I really liked about Haha and W. Maxwell Prince's idea of doing this, because, you know, we get an anthology series, same writer, different artists. And sometimes the different artists can be very jarring. It can, you know, you're like, oh, okay, I wasn't really ready for that. But with Chris O'Halloran, the colorist, being on every single book, it's actually really nice because there is that level of similarity between each and every issue. It's wonderful, and it's so fun to read. And I'm very curious because W. Maxwell Prince doesn't like to do interviews like before he does all this stuff. He usually likes to talk about all this stuff after it's already been put out. He did that with Ice Cream Man as well. Um, I'm very curious to see where he pulled a lot of these stories from, because while I'm sure he's an incredible, incredible writer, I'm not saying he couldn't just make this stuff up. I would just love to see if he actually pulled any of this from real world experiences. It'd be very interesting to hear. And again, as far as the M goes in the AIM, it's only $3.99, and you're getting about 32 pages of comic. So you're getting the average, you know, amount of a comic, and it's all comic from floor to ceiling. There's really no ads at all in this. So that's Haha number 2. You can definitely go find Haha number 1 at your local shop too. I'm sorry, as well. It's already in second, going to third printing pretty soon. But Haha number 2 is out. I think it's just got these 2 covers. There might be a third cover, but that's like a 1 in 100. So you're more than welcome to get that. It's just going to cost you a little bit, you know, a little bit more. But yeah, definitely go pick this book up. It's really good.
Now, before we send out the clowns, it looks like moderator Jasmine has a question from YouTube for you, Paul.
Oh, yes.
Jasmine,
What's
you want to?
up? We got
Guys,
Jasmine
I was
from
muted.
Thousand
Sorry
Oaks
Oh, I'm
there.
about that.
sorry.
Oh, first time
Single
caller.
Sunrider and JJJ on YouTube both ask if haha means anything, like if it's an acronym or anything else, and then if there's a story behind the title.
It's a great question. So, as far as I know, it's not an acronym for anything, but haha is was like the file name that W. Maxwell Prince had just called this, or it was what he had the file named as, I'm sorry, when he was sending this out to all of the artists and other people collaborating, and he just couldn't think of another title. Again, that is from like a email interview that he had done with like AIPT Comics. So I don't know how much was lost in translation. I don't know how much of that is true, but from what I know, it's basically like the file name. And he's just like, I like that because it's just ambiguous enough, and it doesn't, I think it also leads itself to not being just clowns the whole time. Like, I mean, right now it's all clowns. It could be something totally different. I know he wants to maybe do some stories with like the within the life of like stand-up comedians, and that could also play into this. So I think haha is a nice ambiguous term that is also kind of scary when you're reading this book and you read like haha. Like, again, if you haven't read it, it seems like how can that be scary, but once you read the titles, the title of haha tends to be a little more terrifying. But yeah.
Especially because of the underlying sentiment of, like, saying the book's title out loud is imitating a laughter sound, whether or not you say it monotone or not. But so it's not an acronym for anything. It is
Hmm.
just the act of saying "ha ha." I did want to point out though, it's really funny on the cover for this. We've got a bunch of skulls in balloons. And the
Hmm.
pink one actually looks like L from Hollow Heart. Total coincidence.
Oh, it sure
But I'm just
does.
I'm just thinking between the covers. It looks like L from Hollow Heart.
That's awesome. I didn't even notice that. Yeah.
Couple of really depressing comics to start the week off. But
Yeah.
the next book that I'm aiming is actually a unique one. I don't usually tend to aim books that aren't easily accessible, but I'm gonna go for it anyways. My next book to talk about is Black Widow #5 from Marvel Comics. Now, first of all, check out that
Ooh.
flippin' cover. That is an Adam Hughes cover that makes your
Mhm.
stomach drop. That is
Boy, is it.
one of the best covers I've seen uh, for this entire year so far, and all the solicits and such. But this is a really, I wanted to bring this one up for the aim this week because it's actually important to remind people who might have been reading Black Widow. This book was delayed about 6 weeks, but it's out now. It was written by Kelly Thompson with art by Elena Casagrande and then colors by Jordi Belair. And in terms of the A for accessibility, this is actually the first. This is the end of the first arc of the series. So if you aren't already reading this series, I'm gonna have a hard time recommending it to you. I mean, I can recommend you just point blank Kelly Thompson's Black Widow. In 5 issues, it has already upended the character and changed her in incredible ways, as Kelly Thompson tends to do with her quick,
Mhm.
just get in and change the status quo on characters like Jessica Jones and even Deadpool and Hawkeye and all of these characters that she's had a chance to write. Um, but even from issue 1 to issue 5 in Kelly Thompson's version of the character, Black Widow has already changed so much, and you really do have to read it to understand and appreciate it. But you're not without hope if you haven't been reading this series. The end of the arc means that there's a trade collection coming out soon. So, Black Widow Volume 1, The Ties That Bind, will be out on April 21st. You can pre-order it now. So if this is something that you're interested in, definitely check that out. Otherwise, if you were reading this series, if you paused at issue 4 maybe and didn't realize the kind of shipping delay, this is the time to go in and pick up that issue. And without saying too much, the truth of Black Widow's new life was revealed in issue 4. So you do have to have read issue 4 before issue 5. I would not recommend cold picking this up um, because you're not going to know what's going on. That's the honest truth. However, so I guess that kind of feeds into the interest. If you're already reading the Black Widow series, you're going to want to pick this one up. But I just wanted to clarify because some people thought with shipping delays that the book was canceled or what was happening. The book is absolutely not canceled. If you're a fan of any of Kelly Thompson's work, this is a must read. So be sure to either find the back issues or pre-order the trade paperback because this also does feed into the next arc. The last 2 or 3 pages of this story set up for the story to come. And Black Widow gets a cool costume redesign. And we
Nice.
will see Elena Casagrande back on issue #7. But there is a guest artist for issue #6 that will introduce her new costume. And Black Widow is stationed in San Francisco right now. We've seen her there before, I believe, but this is kind of just a really unique story. And I don't want to tip my hand and give too much of it away. So that's kind of the end of that uh, discussion. I know it's hard to talk about, but it's important to remind people this did come out. It wasn't canceled. It was severely delayed. So don't forget to pick it up if you were either waiting for each issue release and didn't have the whole series pulled, or I without giving away the game, it's beautiful, and it also does a lot to kind of reference the Chris Somney run that was
Hmm.
so popular. So you'll want to check that out. And Elena Casagrande's artwork is amazing.
Yeah.
Every facet of this creative team is firing on all cylinders, and it's just this really beautiful package all wrapped up in an incredible Adam Hughes cover. So the M in AIM, it's $3.99. It's a standard issue size and page count. You get 28 pages of story in this Marvel comic. And Black Widow, man, like Kelly Thompson just is one of those I will read anything by her always.
Yeah.
But this is
She's
no exception to just being another stellar feather in her cap of characters she's come in on and just completely changed the game with. So that's
yeah.
Black Widow number 5.
Yeah, I mean that's an awesome series. And again, there's a reason that she was our busy bee for a reason at one point, because it's like, how do you manage to it's like to successfully just capture all of these voices and these incredible stories, and they're all out of the park. They're all fantastic stories. Um yeah, you definitely should be reading Black Widow.
I just want Kelly Thompson to write every character ever all the time now. I mean, I'd be really curious to see her take on Thor, but she seems to do more of the grounded kind of investigatory characters. I mean, with Hawkeye was
Mhm.
running a PI business. We also get to see Clint Barton. So if you're a fan of Kelly Thompson's Clint Barton writing, she does a great job with the Winter Soldier as well. But just these kind of like characters who like to have their private lives and are maybe good at snooping on other people. I mean, Jessica Jones and Black Widow just really she's got her style and it works, and every character she writes manages to stay so distinct, which is
Right.
great.
Yeah, awesome book. But I've got one more book that I want to aim for y'all, because I think this might be the best book of the week. I am talking about Shadow Doctor #1 by Aftershock Comics. Oh man, this is such a good book. So this is written by Peter Calloway, art by Georges Jante, and colors by Juancho. So Peter Calloway, just for people, to get a little bit of reference, has worked on, he's done some comics, but he's mainly a show writer as of late. He's worked on Legion, American Gods, the Hulu show Cloak and Dagger, and then Georges Jante has worked on X-Men, GL, Green Lantern, I'm sorry, Superboy, The American Way, and season 8 of Buffy, which I know Amy was reading, in comic form. So getting right into I want to just kind of pitch this book for all of you really fast, because I was definitely sold on the pitch of this. And this story is about Peter Calloway's grandfather, Nathaniel, who was a black doctor in the 1930s who couldn't get a job as a doctor because he was black, and he wouldn't be allowed alone because he was black. So he had to turn to an alternative form of he had to pay off his student loans. So he goes and he works for Al Capone. The best part of this entire story is it's 100% true, and it is incredibly fascinating. And the one thing that I really love and respect about Peter Calloway in telling the story about his grandfather is he had mentioned very specifically that his grandfather and other the stories obviously gained a lot of traction in different factions of or different corners of pop culture. Is he says that people tend to glorify the actions of his grandfather, rightfully so. There's a lot of, harrowing stuff in here, but he also says his grandfather did a lot of terrible things in his pursuit to be who he is. And he wants to, just keep it 100 and tell everyone that his grandfather was a complicated person. And I really love and respect that. So as far as the A here, the aim, as far as the A and aim, the accessibility, it's a true #1. You don't need to know anything before going into this. Um, if you are a bit of a history nerd, the 1930s Chicago mafia scene, not necessarily the Hoffa era, but again, mainly the Al Capone era, and then also the Great Depression plays into this as well. So that's sort of the area that you're going to need to know specifically for this. And then again, this is a smaller release from Aftershock, who, again, one of my favorite publishers right now. I'm reading a ton of different things by them, but they're not, they're not Image. They're not really even like Boom Studios. So that it is sometimes harder to find their smaller releases, which this book is. It is one of their smaller books right now. So definitely call ahead. If your shop doesn't have it, you can definitely order it. But I checked, it is also on Comixology if you are interested in reading it today, which you should 100%. So, as far as the interest goes, the very first words in this book are the most hard to believe after you finished it, because the very first words are based on a true story. And it's said multiple times all throughout, because Peter Calloway wants people to know that he is not, I mean, he may be adding, some color into this in different parts, but it is 100% a true story, and it's absolutely harrowing, and it's wonderful, and it's gritty, and they do a really good job of capturing that 1930s tone, of what America is like in 1930s. And if you're into like that prohibition era of the 1930s in American culture, definitely going to be a book for you, because this also shows an alternative side to that. It shows how the prohibition affected the medical world, as far as that goes. Black America, the what the mafia looked like at that time, specifically with prohibition as well. It's fascinating, and Peter Calloway does an awesome job of putting you in the shoes of his grandfather Nathaniel, and Georges Ante does a great job of just, I can't explain it, but you're like, as soon as you are looking at the book, you're like, yeah, it's 1930s. I get it. It's wonderful. The lines are clean, they're sharp, and of course, Wancho does a great job with the coloring in the whole book. It's really, really great. I probably could do an entire show on just this book, because I have been singing its praises all day. I love it so much. I actually read it twice. Now, the one of the interesting things when we're getting into the monetary investment here is it's $4.99, which is about average for an Aftershock #1. Now, hear me out here. No, I'm not trying to scare you away. It's 32 pages, and you're only getting about 24 pages of comic, but you've got about 6 pages of back matter that are actual photos of his grandfather that his grandfather has shared for him, letters. He's apparently has a picture of his grandfather with Al Capone. So the back matter of this book is about 6 pages, and it's incredible. It is so interesting. It is definitely, if you pick up Shadow Doctor #1 by Aftershock, please stick around for the credits, because it's so good. It's so good. And also they have teased, they put a preview in for Nuclear Family #1, which comes out next week as well. Stephanie Phillips' book. So she can do no wrong. That book's going to be really exciting. So that is Shadow Doctor #1 by Aftershock Comics. Please go pick it up. Go read it somewhere. I promise you will
It's
love
not
this book.
not often that we get the history buff side of comics
No,
coming out. I mean,
not at all.
people love their comic book histories and the multiverse and all the like super long backstories for all the comic book characters, but
Hmm.
like when the historical world combines with the comic book world, and what an interesting format to be telling that story in.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that
Good
does it.
week.
It's a good week.
Yeah.
Interesting week. Next week we'll have the kind of end of February, which is weird because a lot of comic book companies are kicking off new series at the end of the month, which isn't usual for a month, but
Very
February is
unusual.
anything but usual. But we promised you a new segment, and a spicy new little segment we have. We would like to debut the brand new trade show. So the
Woot
trade
woot.
show segment, in addition to our lovely roster of things like Panel of the Week and Cover Story and Collector's Corner, Trade Show is specifically going to be our segment focused on trade paperbacks, whether
Mhm.
or not they are currently releasing on that week, or we'll do our best to make sure they're still in print, but we want to highlight trade paperbacks that you can get if it's related to a movie that's coming up or a new comic book
Mhm.
based television series that you might want to check out these trades for. And we thought we'd debut this segment with a little heads up for our Court of the Dead Day coming up on Friday, as we mentioned. So there are, whether or not you know this, 2 different uh, trade paperbacks, or actually
Mhm.
one's a hardcover, for Court of the Dead stories. So we're going to focus and start with Grave Tales, which is a comics omnibus. Now, we've covered
Yes.
omnibus editions before on this show with Gem Mint Collectibles. Now, this is a bit smaller of an omnibus than you might be thinking, but it is a fantastic collection and a great starting point for Court of the Dead stories. Now, this is, we're not going to aim these ones, but it is $18.99, available through Sideshow right now. It's 144 pages and a beautiful little soft cover. Now, it features 9 original stories for Court of the Dead with exclusive behind the scenes content on how Sideshow put together these comics, as well as some details behind the Court of the Dead statues. But a very interesting thing about this is that some of these stories are available as part of the free webcomic releases on courtofthedead.com. Now, Jasmine will be linking to that if she's got that link available. But the draw of Grave Tales is that it puts them all into a kind of linear story order that you can read standalone or one all the way through as one big story. It's not necessary to read them all as a story if you go
Right.
in on the webcomics, but it also has an original Malavestro story that was never released before this book's publication.
Oh, it's so cool.
It is. And actually,
Oh,
Malavestros, as the chronicler fool of the Court of the Dead, does a great job of kind of introducing the characters and stories that come up. So you do get more lore to read, almost like a Hickman story. You know, you
yeah.
get those big old lore pages in the X-Men of like the
Yeah.
emails transcripts that the Hellfire
Mhm.
Trading Company is sending. Malavestros gives you nice little overviews into the life of the characters, almost like the Crypt Keeper introducing stories.
Mhm.
Um, Amazing creators were involved in this as well. Of course, Tom Gilliland created the world and the story characters, but some of the writers and artists include Manuel Garcia, Ariel Olivetti, Landry Walker, Karina Bechko, David Palumbo, Joshua Hale Fialkov, Ivan Karitarev, and more.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of those artists who have books that we've covered here on the show, and we, the Royal Sideshow, we have had the privilege of working with them on Court of the Dead, Grave Tales. I mean, this is such a perfect entry for people who really want to just envelop themselves in the Court of the Dead world. I actually just personally just went through all of the Court of the Dead free comics that we have online. Again, Jasmine will drop those links for. I believe you can just go to courtofthedead.com/comics. I believe it might be that.
I think
Um,
so.
and you can read them in linear order. I mean, that's how I read them as well, and it reads wonderfully. The art is great, the lore is rich. I love it so much.
And each of the stories is roughly about 8 to 10 pages. So they are real nice, bite sized kind of views into the world of the court. Now, I do have the list of stories that are included in the omnibus,
Hmm.
and that is The Rise of Death, Death's First Harvest. So both of those are about the All Taker, Death's Siren, A Murky Redemption, which is all
Ooh.
about Galivarb's origin story. Then there is Call of the Valkyrie and To Hell with Heaven, which are both Kier stories, Lament of the Executioner, which is all about Aglavale, Mourner for a Moment, which is a Gethsemane story,
Hmm.
Reflections, which is a very spooky Zyle story, and then The Compassion of Madness is the original story that was never before released, and that is a Malavestros and White Shiv the Errant, who's also known as Hero's Heartache. He's one of my favorite characters. He's very handsome for a dead guy, but that's a really fun story as well. All of those just give you a really great look into the beautiful kind of cast of Court of the Dead.
Hmm.
And there are 3 webcomics that aren't included in this. So you've got incentive to check out both the omnibus and the webcomics. But the webcomics that were not featured in the collection are The Rise of the Queen, which is a Gethsemane origin story, The Rise of the Red Death, which is all about our friend Avarkus, and then Whispers in the Underworld, which is a little introduction to Shard. So you do have 2 different places to go for a bevy of different Court of the Dead content. And there is also a graphic novel called Shadows of the Underworld, written by Jacob Murray, who was featured on Comics Hall for his release, The Eighth Immortal,
Yes.
with art again by Ivan Karitarev. Now, this is an entirely standalone tale. It is 112 pages with 98 pages of story and then additional behind the scenes content. There's a nice introduction at the beginning that beautifully summarizes the conflict of heaven and hell and where the underworld falls in it. It is a $29.99 hardcover edition available on Sideshow.
Oh.
And one of the coolest things that you have to see for yourself when you get this in hand is that the pages are like border to border art. There is no, I
Mhm.
mean, there's gutters, there's lines to divide the panels, but there's no white space around. The art goes to the end of the page, and you think it's practically going to spill off. Every page is full color, incredible. And it's a great story for both established fans who are eager to see more of like Kier's adventures,
Yep.
as well as some of the other characters. And it's great for newcomers because it does a great job of introducing lore as it goes.
Mhm.
Um, Focused in the tale are Gethsemane, the All-Taker, Kier, and Exrael, fighting a brand new threat, Geddis Avancore, and the Dreadscript, which is that corrupting force, the purple energy that you see in some of the statues. Um, it is the darkness inside of all mourners. So it is a really great tale. I don't want to spoil any of it, but it is a really cool thing, and just and it is hard to convey the seeing a book where the art goes all the way to the edge of the page. Like, it does feel like the underworld is spilling out of
Mhm.
the graphic novel. Highly recommend Shadows of the Underworld. But if you're looking for a place to start, you want to start with Grave Tales and those web comics that you can check out right now online.
Yeah. And again, reminder everyone, we have Court of the Dead Day coming up this Friday, and we may have one or two. We may have one or two of these Gravetail omnibuses to give away, but right
Ooh.
now you can go to courtofthedead.com and shop, and it'll be right up there. Jazz will drop a link. Right now, it's only $19 for all this incredible art. But Amy, we have one more segment.
We do. Our favorite segment to take it down gently into that good night. We've got our Holler at the Hall. This week was a rockin' question we asked all
Hmm.
of you guys. We wanted to know your favorite fictional music acts in comics. Now, originally we were just thinking bands, but we also expanded to solo acts because, there's a lot of solo acts in comics as well. Um, so we got some great responses from you guys, and a lot of fan favorites and some newer ones as well. So, Paul, do you want to kind of get us started there?
Mon Cork over in the Later Geek Set Show Facebook group said, "Sex Babam, what a fun band." And also one of our excellent moderators, Nafis, will also says "Sex Babam" again from Scott Pilgrim.
Yes, that is the Scott Pilgrim versus the World band. Sean M. Snow said Murder Falcon, a newer
Hmm.
character by Daniel Warren Johnson, who's going to be taking on the Beta Ray Bill series from Marvel. But Murder Falcon has a guitar, so he is ostensibly a musician.
It counts. It's canon. Luke Haber, Mike Farbo, and Kelsey Lynn Clary all said Dazzler, of
Wow,
course.
Andrew Wershborn brought up the X-Men character Lila Cheney, who was a uh, great callback there, because I do know most people do think of Dazzler, but we've got some interdimensional singers as well. And Lauren Ashley Zarillo said the Mary Janes. That's Spider Gwen's band.
And because I think I legally have to include this because he's my boss, Joe Lombardo said the Kingdom of the Princess Who Saved Herself. They mostly play math rock and cuddlecore. I don't know what that means, Joe Lombardo, but whatever you say, sir.
The Princess Who Saved Herself is a fantastic book for younger readers. So if you've got a young music fan in your life, definitely check that out. I think it's more of an illustrated prose book than a comic, but I could be wrong. I know it's got art by Takeshi Miyazawa, who is a frequent contributor to the Miss Marvel comics. So that's a lot of fun. And if you guys go to the Let Your Geek Side Show Facebook group, check out that question when we asked it. I did include links to a little known secret that I personally adore. But to promote the Brendan Fletcher and Annie Wu Black Canary series, there were 2 separate EPs produced on Bandcamp with actual music by the Black Canary band, meant to promote the series and kind of celebrate the character Black Canary and be in world for the band releasing music. And the songs are really good. I think I have the second album, so there's a song called Get in the Car, and there's Lost Art, and they're actually just really good songs. So I highly recommend you check that out. You can download those on Bandcamp, I believe, for a nominal fee. But that's some cool multimedia crossover with comic books and music combined. Now, we do have another question for you guys next week. We'll post this up in our Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group, but you can always email us at thecomicshall@sideshow.com. Our new question for next week is, if you had complete creative control over one comic book character, who would it be and why? Some people are very protective of their favorite characters, and we want to know, if you were handed the keys to the kingdom for one character, who would it be and why?
Hmm. Yeah, so you can let us know. We will post that up in the Let Your Geek Set Show Facebook group. We will put it up on our Instagram as well. Please let us know. We are very curious. Me and Amy also have very unique answers as well, I imagine.
And
And
note, just because that's our question, we have no ability to give you creative control. We hope and wish the best for you, but we have no influence over
we'll see.
who
We'll
gets
talk.
creative control.
This isn't recorded, right?
It's only live to a couple hundred of our favorite people. So.
Hello.
But we will be back next week with a great show to wrap up the end of February. Unfortunately, Paul will not be on next week's episode, but we will have moderator Jasmine sitting in the hot seat with me while we cover some of the newest releases from Image, Marvel, DC, and more. So, don't forget to join us for Court of the Dead Day this Friday, February 19th. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please check out those webcomics and enjoy them and have fun. But until then, I'm Amy.
And I'm Paul.
And this has been the Comics Hall. Thanks for joining us.